Simpson's predictions for 2023. 1. America's collapse. 2. The China War. 3. The end of the world. Just watch it by yourself.
I was thinking we might want to save my 2014 Joke-A-Day calendar, because the calendar's the same in the year 2031, and we're really going to need some laughs then, after World War China. The calendar's the same in the year 2031, and we're really going to need some laughs then, after World War China. Impending doom.
What you reading, Dad?
Honey, everything's fine. There's nothing to worry about.
When things go south, the sheeple will clean out every supermarket in town.
Typical sheeple.
Here it is, Homer. The Springfield Preppers' top-secret bug-out retreat.
Wow! Your end of the world is better than my during the world.
Homer, we all know America's collapse is about 3 months away.
6 weeks at most.
There's always one alarmist. Anyway, when the 4 horsemen ride, we want you and your collaterals right here with us.
Hidden all our supplies behind a fake wall.
I thought the basement looked cleaner.
See? These are our bug-out bags. In here, it's everything we need to survive.
Survive what?
The looming kablooey.
It's reassuring to see you're aware of the future, but this is all a little creepy.
Creepy? Marge, the apocalypse is coming.
New Simpsons prediction.
We're about to enter a time of tribulation, and I think 95% of the Christians that I know are not at the least bit ready for it. Mentally, physically, psychologically, it's coming like a freight train. Everyone seems to be waiting. It's almost an expectation in the air, like the world's falling apart. Somebody ought to do something. Everything's getting worse. The crime rate is skyrocketing. The diseases and brand new designer diseases, you know, what's going on? The Muslims are waiting for the 12th Imam. They've been teaching for hundreds of years that the 12th Imam is going to come and he's going to solve the world problems. He will make everybody become a Muslim. The Hindus, they're waiting for the Krishna. Krishna's going to come down and solve the world problems. Everybody seems to be in anticipation of something is about to happen. And it is. Jesus answering then began to say, Take heed lest any man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And when ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, be not troubled. Be ye not troubled, for such things must needs be, but the end shall not be yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be earthquakes in divers places, and there shall be famines and troubles. These are the beginnings of sorrows. And when he'd opened the 3rd seal, I heard the 3rd beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. What are balances for? For weighing things, right? And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, A measure of wheat, which is about a quart, for a penny. And 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. You say, that's cheap. Oh no, that's expensive. Because a penny in the Bible was a day's wages. Matthew 24. When he agreed with the laborers for a penny a day. So what if a quart of wheat cost $60? What's that going to do to the price of pancakes, the price of bread? How many things are made from wheat? A bunch. And when it opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And his name that sat on him was Death. And hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth. There are about nearly 8 billion people in the world today. What would happen if 2 billion people died, a 4th of the world? A 4th of the world's population gets killed. By the way, we're still here for this. I'll show you. And when he'd opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true,
The gravity of the president's language was sinking in even before he was off the ground in New York. By the time he'd arrived back in Washington with his press secretary at his side, he'd have been fully aware of the impact the off-the-cuff, off-camera remarks were having. He told an audience at a Democratic fundraiser, "We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis." He, Putin, is not joking when he talks about potential use of tactical nuclear weapons or biological or chemical weapons, because his military is, you might say, significantly underperforming. And then the president said this, "I don't think there's any such thing as the ability to easily use a tactical nuclear weapon and not end up with Armageddon." That last sentence seems to be particularly stark. In essence, what he's saying is that if Putin uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine, the likely conclusion is Armageddon. Now that might well be a threat, a warning to Putin. Know where this leads, know what might happen. The danger, of course, is that it's a warning which ends up playing out. The Russian leader celebrated his birthday in Moscow with a small collection of loyalist leaders. But it was his comments a week ago which still ring loud. He said the United States is the only country in the world to have used nuclear weapons twice, destroying the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He added, "They set a precedent."
This is serious. Both sides are fairly dug in on what the consequences will be in the event of escalation. What we don't know yet is what either side would be willing to accept short of complete annihilation on the other side.
And that's the nub of it. Who blinks first? Back in 1962, at a minute to midnight Armageddon, Kennedy and Khrushchev found a way out. The Soviet missiles were removed from Cuba. The American ones left Turkey. The Cuban Missile Crisis was over. White House officials insist the president's remarks are not based on new information, consistent messaging, they say, or loose language. Either way, the backdrop now isn't a 1960s Cold War, but a real one in Europe, where calculations are hasty and miscalculations very possible. Mark Stone, Sky News in Washington.
Of good and evil. So every technological boom that comes forward, CRISPR-Cas9, that's amazing. Genetic editing, that's astounding. Can we use it for good? Absolutely. We can bless people's lives. But is it going to be used only for good? Absolutely not. In fact, now it's already perverted and perverse, and we have not yet seen the bottom of that dark hole. All right? Robotics and artificial intelligence. Can we use that for good? Oh my gosh, it would just make the whole world transformed in some wonderful ways. But the problem is, we build robots, we put artificial intelligence, and then the makers of it say, I know what, let's have sex with it. It's just the perversion is uncontrollable. Pandora's box has been opened. So when you put all this stuff together, and then you understand that we're the first generation in humankind to see the convergence of all this stuff since the return of Israel, just 70 years ago. Just 7 years, our historical lifetime. You and I, neither one of us are 70 years old, but you and I both grew up with Israel has always been there in our lifetime. But it really hasn't. It's just been 7 little decades. 7 little decades. It's been 2,700 years before that there was no Israel. Yet the Word of God said in the last days, I'm bringing it back, and I'm paraphrasing, but God says it in Ezekiel 38, 39, says it in Deuteronomy 4, and several other scriptures. In paraphrasing, he says, and when I do this, then the nations will know that I am the Lord, and there is no other. I will bring them back in the sight of the nations. This will be my witness to the nations that I am the Lord. And I'm going to paraphrase and add this because this is the implication of it, and that we are in the last days. When you see Israel return, we're 70 years. We're just a few months the other side of Jerusalem being restored.
In Lviv, the mayor of the city said 1/3 of the city was now without power. Russia says that it's carried out massive strikes using long-range and high-precision weapons, and all assigned targets were hit. On Monday, Russia fired over 80 missiles targeting multiple Ukrainian cities, leaving at least 19 people dead and over 100 injured. The Ukrainian capital, Kiev, was one of the main targets of these attacks. Earlier today, air raid sirens resounded over the capital city once again. Commuters on their way to work took shelter in metro stations.
Y empezar el 2023 bien cabrón, 2023, 2023, 2023, 2023, 2023, 2023, 2023, 2023, 2023, 2023. De Moana hasta toda que.
We're talking zombie apocalypse for real. Always going to expand, and it was always going to escalate. And the most probable outcome is a limited nuclear war. We're talking about end of the civilization we've known. Perhaps a human ending collapse. If you understand what will happen, there is even a limited nuclear war. A new ice age. 450 plus nuclear reactors melting down and exploding. Power outages in most of the world for years. It'll cause an estimated 4 billion people to die. We're talking zombie apocalypse for real. Ladies and gentlemen, Putin has done a partial mobilization of 300,000 troops. Putin has said, and the quotes are up on Infowars.com, that he's not bluffing, and he's threatening nuclear war. And ladies and gentlemen, we are now at war with Russia. Now, in any doctrine of war and modern warfare, this will respond, this will escalate, this will lead to something far worse. And in this case, it's war with Russia, it's financial collapse, it's depression. Okay, so FedEx came out and said, we're going basically into a sustained long-term recession, depression. We see all the numbers coming out, ladies and gentlemen, of the establishment digging in, the elites digging in. I have been in multiple high-level meetings with top people. I told you this 6 months ago and again a few months ago. I'm not going to name names. These were private meetings, who were asking my advice on where they thought they might need to evacuate to and some of the evacuation points that were there in the Southern Hemisphere. I can tell you that people like Larry Page and others of Google are living in the South Pacific. Won't be radio and TV or internet when this happens, okay? The power's going to be off for a long time. It took decades to build all this infrastructure. It'll be blown away in seconds. And everybody better be praying. Everybody better be on their knees, because you're this close to the end of your life as you know it. And if there's even a limited nuclear war, a sustained long-term depression. This is a war on humanity by the globalists who want to destroy human civilization. And then on this ashes build a technocracy in their own words. They told you the future is not human. That's why all these top rock stars and country music stars and hip hop stars and pop stars are canceling all their shows. They've already been told. They're not being told why. It's why over 1,000 CEOs and over 100 top ones resigned 2 months before COVID was released in 2020, in late 2019. The war games have been done. The drills have been prepared. And I'm not trying to scare you. This is a fact. And I believe that we got about a 5% chance of nuclear war while we're gone next week. And I said I think it's about a 30-40% chance the next month. He said, it's funny you say that. That's exactly what he and his compatriots believe as well.